Okay, this is the replay analysis for Smiley Face, Archon 4 Storm Spirit. Okay, so first of all, I always like to look at the draft order because while Storm is a really fun hero, just picking him randomly is not so great. So you go ahead and you are the last pick on your team, so you third phase. And the enemy team picks Phantom Lancer. So you saw everybody except for Peel. So Storm is pretty decent versus most of them. I would say you're good versus Centaur in the sense that it's unlikely that he should kill you. Not so great versus him in the sense that it's difficult for you to kill him. And it can make you end up using, like when you commit on heroes, it can end up costing you a lot more mana than you anticipate if he's paying attention and gets his ult off. Disruptor, of course, really, really scary. You definitely need a BKB or a Euls or something in order to deal with this Disruptor, unless you are really, really good at dodging Glimpse. But if you're not a very high rank Storm spammer, then I would probably try to avoid this particular matchup. However, if you're learning a hero, it's always worth playing in the counters. But just expect that you're not always going to have the wins to back it up. But that's okay. If your goal is not to gain MMR, but to become better at Dota, then you're not going to be crying too much because you lose 2 or 3 games picking Storm and Disruptor, and then you never lose to it again because you know how to deal with it. Mirana, really good versus her. Again, some of these heroes, it's like they have decent escapes. Void Spirit, Centaur, and Mirana. All of them have things to get away, and this is usually when Storm is pretty good. The enemy team doesn't have a lot of lockdown, but they have limited escape, right? So obviously, best case, they have no escape. But Storm is pretty good versus heroes like Mirana because, you know, she leaps and you leap after her, and she leaps and you leap after her. And you should usually be able to kill most of these heroes. And Storm is really good versus Void Spirit, in my opinion. One of the best matchups for you in the mid lane. So, pretty decent Storm game. Okay, so we'll talk about itemization first. This itemization is mostly correct. So in a game where you really want to get your bottle fast, this is fine, but you should start with the salve. There's basically no reason to have saved up gold unless you feel like you can get away with something incredibly greedy. I would generally suggest, simply based off of your rank, that it is not the best idea for you to be incredibly greedy. I would start with being consistent, and when you're pretty consistent, then in particular games when you think you know a matchup really well, then you can be greedier. But I just don't think that, you know, if you're looking for coaching and stuff, that's generally what I would say. And of course, my comments are going to be directed to winning games consistently rather than winning any one game. I think there are moves you can make, like being, you know, it's like gambling, you know, it's like you're rolling the dice when you play Dota, and on average you want to win. So this is a, on average, not going to win you the game kind of starting item build. So you need to decide if it's worth the gamble to go greedy, or if you should be more consistent and buy an extra Mantle of Intelligence or buy your salve. If you don't want to go 2 nulls, then this plus a salve is good. But my assumption is you're just trying to rush bottom, so we'll see what happens. So the mid-ward game is always kind of weird. Excuse me, I'm yawning. The mid-ward game is always kind of weird. There's like this weird revolving meta of whether or not people like walk up and check, and if they do, how long do you wait? So you go ahead and wait a second. You end up getting lucky. I think you actually spot him getting his ward. Hopefully that means you send out a sentry, since you get a pretty significant chunk of gold and some XP for that. On Radiant, this play is a little bit better. to go for the rune. I think I accidentally told someone else that it was worse, but it's actually better on Radiant. The reason for this is it's really, really hard to block the creeps from this tier 3 tower to this tier 2 tower. They're basically like unblockable unless you do the RTZ block, but you can go look up YouTube videos on how to do that, and why it's called the RTZ block. And Dire, it's not so good because you can get a better block. So Dire should generally have the block advantage, but here he messes up and you don't. That's really nice. And I'm going to slow this down, back up a bit. So the first wave on every hero, but especially on like snowbally nuker style heroes that rely on levels very heavily in the early game, you want to make sure that you don't get denied out. So this Void Spirit gets a pretty ludicrous deny, honestly, which is really unfortunate. You were a little bit too early with your auto attack. Always try to sync the damage of your Q and your attack when you're going for a play like that. That way you have the 120 damage from your Q and the 40 or so damage that your auto attack will do after armor and stuff, or 50. And if you're missing CS with 170 damage, then you should probably go into a practice lobby and get some practice doing that. Your position here is way too passive. So as this creep is dying, you should be threatening him. Even if you don't press your Q, you should be threatening him with the idea of your Q, right? So sometimes not pressing the spell is just as powerful as pressing the spell. And so if you walk up melee, and you don't even have to click on him and draw aggro, I'm just going to assume you know what aggro is. If not, you need to go pause this video and go watch a video about aggro, because otherwise it's going to make no sense. But you don't even have to aggro him here. You can actually just like click past him. So it's the second creep that we're watching. Like right here, you should be walking up melee and threatening him with your Q. And then what you can do is you can make a decision, which is, am I going to be able to hit him enough times where using my Q to get the CS is worth it? In this particular sense, it ended up that it would have been, but you didn't walk up, so it's hard to know what he would have done. But threatening him with your Q and basically saying, sure, come up and contest the CS, but you're gonna tank my Q if you do, and if you commit to this, I'm also going to hit you the whole time. Like, Storm has really, really high armor for a mid laner. Like, you have 6 armor. This guy has 2 armor, which means, particularly when you have a creep advantage like this, you've got 4 creeps. He's going to have 2 creeps after this. You have more armor, you have high ground advantage, and you have better nukes. Like, this is just a really, really, really good trade opportunity that you completely whiff. And I really want to, like, kind of beat this in, because this is, like, these kinds of things change the dynamic of the lane so much. If he's on 1/3 HP here because you just hit him 5 times and hit him with 2 Qs, one from the first creep and one from the second creep, it's like, oh no, you used 70 more mana and he's already wishing he had a salve. And then the other thing this does is it propels you into the next wave, right? Because now you've pushed his wave, which you should be. He should have de-pushed the wave, but he's an idiot, so he's not. So you're shoving this wave under his tower, and now he's going to be CSing under a tower while there's a Storm Spirit hitting him with 1/3 HP. And he is not going to get a lot of CS, and if he does, it's going to cost him. Small little detail here, you walk down the stairs to try to get that CS, try to walk up the stairs, like, you had a 25% chance of just not getting that last hit for no reason. And here, like, this is the right idea, just executed it a little bit wrong. I would have hit the range creep walking down and then gotten the CS with my Q while autoing him. Like, every time you get to auto him, you want to auto him. Here, you should be drawing aggro. You do. I don't know what rank this guy is, but he is not a good Void Spirit, and he's probably not a high rank. Legend 2, okay. So I mean, everything is relative. So he's higher rank than you, but you're playing better than him, and I would consider him to be low rank, which is why he's making so many of these plays. But he's probably not a mid player that's consistent. Here again, like, He gets a Q on you. Like, just press your Q and hit him. Like, you're going to get 2 CS, and then this is, like, still a favorable trade for 2 reasons. Like, one, because if you hit him, if you use your Q and hit him, you get both last hits, and then it's you versus him in a range creep, and you have a very high armor advantage, and your damage is very, very similar. Like, that's just a decent trade. If he wants to continue, like, he's already used his nukes, and you have more nukes that you're willing to spend. So you can get like 2 or 3 autos on him. And as a ranged hero, it's always nice to have the trade advantage because it puts the enemy hero in this like weird mental state, and it really affects low and more players like a lot. So the kind of idea that I'm thinking of is, this is a really morbid example, but if you were getting tortured because you had some info that somebody else wanted, and they said, okay, when he's ready to talk, torture him for 5 more minutes. Like, that kind of weird mental, like, oh my gosh, can I put up with this plus 5 minutes? Is like the same idea of this melee hero trading with a ranged hero that outtrades him. Like, if he wants to sit here and trade hits with you, he knows at the end of the day that you will win the trade, which means he can't commit for a kill. And whatever damage he does to you and you do to him, you get to hit him 3 more times as he runs away. So he kind of has to decide, how many hits do I want to trade? Plus 3. And instead, you walk away because you're scared of a range creep or something. So again, like, he should be on half HP. And this is what I want to see, like this kind of stuff. But like, why do you walk away now? Like, why not just hit him 3 more times, or force him off this range creep? You don't even have to use your mana; just hit him. So hopefully, you have your bottle coming now. Okay, so he doesn't have a bottle. You have a bottle, which means you have all of your HP and mana plus 3 bottle chargers, right? He has only the HP and mana he has, plus these 2 Fairy Fires. So now it's time for you to use this pretty substantial advantage you have. You're level 4. Oh, you put a 2nd point in your Q? No. No, you get 3 points in your E before you even consider getting another point in your Q. Like, I don't know of any matchup where that's... Maybe Ember Spirit. Ember Spirit might be the only matchup in the game where you get more points in your Q than your E. But you always max your E. It's not as good, like, damage-wise. Like, this is 20 damage, and this is 55 damage. But the reason that this is better is because of your ult and your W. So, like, when you get level 6, all of a sudden you have 3 points in this, and every single spell you use gets buffed by 80 damage. So you use your ult, 80 damage. Use your W, 80 damage. Use your Q, 80 damage. And that adds up a lot more than the 1 or 2 Qs you could hypothetically get on someone. You're also just really, it's unreliable to land your Q on people without your W. Okay, here, let's talk about a little bit of an efficiency play. Okay. Alright, so you have 3 options here. And this starts at 1 minute and 38 seconds, these 3 options, but it's more prevalent now. So your 3 options are hit him, block, or stack. And you need to decide which one of those 3 options is the best for you. So the way that you're going to figure out what is the best for you is you need to kind of do some quick math on the delta. So delta's changed. So you want to see, hitting him, how much does that change my net worth advantage over his, right? Versus stacking versus blocking. Blocking is like definitely not the correct answer here. That's generally what you do every other wave. And here, it's if you make him miss all 3 of these CS, that's better than stacking. If you can't do that because he has spells that like guarantee him last hits, then it's better to block. Especially because you should know you have your bottle. He's going to have his bottle pretty soon. A lot of this harass is just going to get regen from his bottle for him trying to get mana. So I would go stack myself. Yeah, so you end up tanking 2 spells, not denying him. Like, he misses ACS, but like for him that's definitely worth. And you don't get the stack off. Like, you can just run and stack a camp real quick and then come back here. This play right here, this is all good. This is like really, really good. You get all these CS. You get 2 good autos off on him. But if you have 2 points in this, like you do 40 more magic damage to him, and it doesn't affect your CS at all. And you actually save 20 mana. You can also be much more liberal with your W, like this last Q that you use. It's like, it's really cool that it lands. But like, it's actually better if you don't use your Q there and you use your W and then hit him, and then if you want to, you have the option to use your Q again and then hit him again. But you'll get 3 autos off for 60 mana guaranteed, which is more damage than 1 Q. So you can pull him and use your Q. It's more mana intensive, but I would probably just pull him and hit him 3 times. Probably being more detailed than I should be, but I have played a lot of Storm, so, and I've played this matchup quite a bit. Okay, so now that it's 3 minutes and something seconds, you want to make sure that this wave is under his tower. There's basically no scenario where this wave shouldn't be under his tower. And it should be the same for him. If I'm coaching him, I'm telling him the same thing. There should be no scenario that this wave should be under your tower. It should be under Storm's tower. And you need to be running for this rune already. Like, this is such a big deal that you get this rune. So, and see, he can't go for this rune. And if he did, like if he left to go get the rune, how many creeps does he miss? It's like he misses, 4 creeps to get a rune or something like that, whereas you miss none, and you get a 3rd point in your queue. Oh my gosh. This is gonna cost you so much. Like, you are going, I haven't even watched the rest of this game. You're gonna miss kills because of this, and you're gonna lose out on farm because of this. So if you don't understand or believe me, just trust me and don't freaking max Q. Max your E. If you end up hard farming jungle, after you get a 3rd point in your E, you can max your Q. That's like the only exception I'll give you. If you're hard farming jungle. I would just be Wing him off cooldown, man. If he's full HP like this, you're not going to get a kill with it. And 11-second cooldown for 40 mana, who cares? And if you have 3 points in this, that's 3 autos plus 80 damage. Quite a bit. It's quite a bit of damage that you're just kind of missing out on because you're not pressing it. Going for this rune is fine. I think if you have a support that's protecting it for you like this, then you can be a little greedier and stay here and get these CS first. Both you and Void, really prioritize this rune. This is a mistake as well here. These creeps aren't going to go anywhere for 1 minute, and these creeps are. Like, you just lost 2 CS for no reason. So, if you have 3 points in your E here, this should be a dead hero, but you don't, so you can't kill him. And this is one of those times where I told you you're going to miss out on kills. This is a kill. You might not see it, but this is a kill. You should hit him a couple times. You know how you prep a creep? Here, we can do this. grief. So let's just talk about prepping creeps real quick. Or Shadowfen. So if you're, what I mean by prepping a creep is you sit here and you auto it. And I'm going to ignore this creep. So it's like, here, I've autoed this creep, it's prepped, and I can nuke it, right? You want to do the same thing to hero kill. So if you're playing Shadow Fiend, right, it's like, maybe you want to just raise him, you know, once or twice or something, right? And then if he ever comes to lane again, then you can just kill him. Most players in this bracket are not going to salve when they get to, like, you know, 60% HP or something. So when they're like this guy is prepped now. Like, he comes up for a CS, and I can press all my spells and kill him. This Void Spirit, like, you want to be prepping him for a kill when you are level 5. So when you're level 5, you're going to be watching your XP. And when you hit level 6, you should have a hotkey that skills it up, and you should kill the mid, basically every single time. And that's not really going to change. Like, that pattern isn't really going to change until you probably hit, like, ooh, I'm going to say High Divine. So, because in my Storm games, like, I can do the same thing, and I get kills pretty consistently with this exact same. So it's like, okay, you hit level 6 somewhere else. It's like, just hit him, use your W, hit him a couple more times, and then it's like, when he's 60% HP and he's not level 6, he's not escaping you. If he ever uses his W, especially like here, he's gonna use his nuke or something. Like, you see him use his nuke, and you see him use this, it's like, that's a dead hero. Like, that's just dead. You have bottle, like, you only have one stick, but whatever, like, you should just pull him, use your Q, hit him, and then do jumps as much as you need to in order to get this kill. But he's dead. Like, he's just dead on my screen. And you let him move. But that's okay. Pacifism is acceptable. You get a kill there. I think that's largely a waste of time. I think you should really be pressuring this Void Spirit while you have this advantage, but you don't. And then you should be farming to get your items. So your CS is pretty damn good, honestly. Like, yeah, you're leading the charts for sure. And you're well on your way to having decent farm this game. So you do eventually buy yourself a Clarity. I don't think you've stacked any camps. That's something you should work on, especially as a mid hero that generally farms. I don't know what your idea in the head of what Storm Steward is, but he's not really a ganker or a roamer. He can with a rune, and that's basically the only time you ever want to leave your lane. Is if you get like an arcane rune, a regen rune, a DD, a haste, and you go and you kill someone important, right? Like, if you take your level, let's say you're level 8, right, and you get an arcane rune, and you freaking run around the map and you kill this level 4 disruptor, like, that's such an enormous waste of time. Like, it would literally be better to use that arcane rune or that regen rune to farm 12 camps. Or to, like, push in a dangerous location and get additional creeps. So, like, you really take off this game when you get Orchid. That's when you start being able to do things like solo kill PL, solo kill Disruptor, solo kill Mirana, Void Spirit. Like, basically all 5 of these heroes die whenever you get Orchid. And I don't really see you prioritizing that Orchid timing more than I see you prioritizing, like, roaming for I don't know what. I don't know if your team was pinging you or asking to roam. Another thing to mention, excuse me for yawning. Like, I'm glad that you're buying clarities consistently. Something that I noticed that better players do. So when I watch like a really, really high MOR player, like let's say, you know, I'm watching Sumail Storm or something, right? A good example is I was watching a replay of BSJ playing Mars. And he basically, if he wasn't in a fight with a hero, he had a clarity on him, like active, the entire game for nearly 50 minutes. And the thing that was surprising to me about it was how long he kept it up, even though he bought mana regen items like Euls on Mars, which is not a hero that has tons of high mana cost spells. So, like on Storm, mana is basically the only thing that limits you from like being the most ridiculous hero in the game, right? Like mana slows, if you don't have mana, it slows down your farm, it slows down your moving from camp to camp, which impacts your farm as well. It slows down how many kills you can get. So like not being full mana at all times is a bad thing, and it's kind of like a balance thing with Storm. So you should have a clarity. You should like buy 4 clarities at a time. Have a clarity on you the entire game. If you're not in a fight, you should be claritied, and you should be using that mana that you're getting from clarities to get gold. Each clarity gives you, I don't know how much mana. 6 for 30 seconds. That's 60 times 3, right? 180 mana? Yeah. It's like 180 mana. And it gets amped by like mana regen items or something like that. I can't remember. Maybe your int. Something like that. But like that mana is going to give you way, way, way more than 50 gold. And it's going to give you more than 50 gold extra than what you would have gotten without buying the clarity. So it actually is, it's kind of a little bit counterintuitive that buying clarities gives you gold. But that's how you need to think about it. So, and you should have, like, with the game that you've had, honestly, and how well you've been CSing, you should have close to 100 last hits now. You're just, like, making these random rotations all over, and they're not really netting you much. So, like, even though you have the highest CS, you're not going to be the highest net worth by a lot. And this is fine. You want to be shoving this wave, protecting your tower, and then farming, or if you get some kind of power spike like this, like an Arcane Rune, then going for a kill. So this is a rotation that I agree with. I think all of the other rotations you've done I've disagreed with, and this is the first one I've agreed with. You've got a pretty decent little spike here, right? It's like you got your Oblivion Staff, you've got Arcane Ring up, you've got your wand, your raindrops, like your itemization is absolutely perfect. You've got an Arcane Rune, like you can definitely go and kill someone important. I think I would have liked you to see you kill the PL, especially because you knew he was like farming in this area. Mid, like you can take this Arcane Rune and walk into here and feel pretty invincible. Especially if you have any clue where Disruptor is, like you're just not going to die. So going after Centaur, that's a fine pick. He's gonna try to make space for the PL, but this is like the hardest gank, right? Like it's a decent gank because you can do it, but this is the hardest one because you're ganking the hardest hero to kill with the only hero that can kill you in the game standing right behind him. So, and this is the concern, which is they can rotate, and it turns this, like, power spike you have that basically guarantees you a kill into nothing. So, it's the right idea to make this gank here, and this is, like, the wrong... Oh no, and you died too. And these are the wrong targets, yeah. It's like the hardest hero to kill in the game with the only hero who can kill you behind him. Not a great combo. Much better to go and gank in here. And even if the exact same freaking thing happens, and you kill a P, and like you go on the PL here, and they Centaur ulti and Disruptor TPs and kills you, like at least you're dying here instead of here. Because what happens here, right? They push your tower. So like, the fact that you die isn't as big of a deal as the events leading up to your death. Like you made a great call to go gank with this Arcane Rune, and then you ganked the wrong person in the wrong part of the map. And that's where it went downhill. Not because you ganked. So, I think a goal you can set for yourself that will help alleviate some of these things is set like a numerical timer for your Orchid. I don't know, what was the last time I played a game of Storm? Oh gosh, I'm losing. There, let's look at a win. So I went Bloodstone first. In fact, I was feeding or something this game. What the heck? Oh, I got Huskar Vipered. Ugh. Okay, not a great one. But I would say about like 16, 17 minutes at the latest you should have Orchid in any given game. And in a game that was this free for you, it should probably be closer to like 15, 16 minutes. Very, very doable this game. You just ganked instead of farmed. And I think if you had farmed, then you would have done better. But let's speed through this.
Over here now.
And this is good. Like, you're pretty close to full mana, and you've got a Clarity going, and you're just using your mana to farm. But you're, like, always full mana, always ready to go. You get popped by that guy. That's unfortunate. That's just kind of life. We can go look to see if there was some vision or something that you weren't looking at. Nah, you just get arrowed. But that's just gonna happen. You know, you're gonna get arrowed, you're gonna die. Haste DD is pretty freaking strong. If you get that opportunity, it would be good for you to run into the enemy side of the map, especially when they have a dead hero and they don't have Disruptor ulti or Centaur ulti. Because basically, you're only dying if you get arrowed, like a full arrow, and they're all there, which is unlikely. It could happen, and you could do this, and you might do it your next game and die and say, damn, I shouldn't have listened to that guy. But they don't have their Void Spirit. They don't have Disruptor ulti. They don't have Centaur ulti. You have Haste DD, and you use it to farm. And it just feels like you're ganking at mostly the wrong times and the wrong targets, and you're farming with the wrong time. You do get your Orchid though. I would be trying to get my team to smoke with my Orchid and try to go kill a PL. If your team doesn't want to smoke, then you farm. Something else we can talk about is, like, just in general, this isn't like really Storm related, but just kind of game related, is you want to take the most dangerous farm you can safely, which kind of sounds weird, but when you're doing these farming, and this applies even back like at minute 10 or something, right? You want to take the farthest farm you can take that isn't going to get you killed. So if that farm is here in your triangle, then that's the farm you take. If that farm is here, then that's where it is. It doesn't really, like, geographically on the map, it's going to change throughout the course of the whole game. If you have wards down here and you see a bunch of enemy heroes in here, right, and it's like, even though this is like quote-unquote your jungle, that's not where the safe farm is. The safe farm is up here. The safe farm is like up here behind this tier 2, cutting this wave, right? Like that's where safe farm is because you see them down here. If you don't have anyone on the enemy team that threatens you except for this disruptor, which is really the only threat that you have this game, and you know where he is, then anywhere he isn't is relatively safe farm, right? And this is going to do a couple things for you. One, this is going to allow your Sven the opportunity to carry you. If you're taking the triangle from him and you're taking these camps from him, like, you may not think that you're griefing his farm, but you are. Like, anytime Sven runs to a camp that he didn't farm and the creeps are gone, somebody griefed him. And this is like really, really, really prevalent up into very, very high immortal, like very high immortal. We're talking like top 100 stuff. Now, it's in varying degrees, right? Like, it's 2 minutes and 54 seconds. So if there's a camp here, you can take it. Like, worst case, you stack it for the Sven or something, right? And then the other thing is, generally, the farthest farm you can get is going to be lanes. So if you're killing this creep wave back here, and then you're taking this farm, and let's say they rotate to this tower, right? Well, that means the bottom is safe for everyone, not just you. And you can TP there, you can walk there, your team can farm there, whatever, right? You can also always farm backwards, right? So if they TP here, it's like you can take this camp, then you can walk to the triangle, take the triangle, then you can walk across here, and the whole time you're going to have vision of some enemy hero that's deep pushing the lanes. Like, you always want to focus on the lanes. If the lanes are in, you want to push them out. If you can push a lane, you should. I think the only creep camp in the game that's better than a wave of creeps is Ancients. And Storm doesn't farm Ancients that well, and he farms lane creeps incredibly well. And this is where most of your farm should always come from in any Storm game, which is cutting waves, being behind towers, being in places where the enemy has to rotate to kill you, and then being able to escape. Very similar to like the farming style of an AM. Most AMs you see are probably going to be back here farming really passively, and they're scared, and they're like way back here, and they're going to lose games because the enemy team gets to farm the rest of the map. An AM only gets to farm like 5 safe camps. But if there's an AM who can't die because like they can't kill him once he gets his manta, and he's back here cutting waves and farming their triangle and stuff, it's like it's really hard for the enemy team to play. They don't have camps, they can't catch the AM, they're like kind of running around, they can't do anything. And Storm can be the same thing. Any elusive hero. Great series of events for you guys. You kill the PL. Doesn't really cost you anything important. And you guys should have Roached here, like, without question. They didn't have Centaur ulti, they didn't have Disruptor ulti. Like, Sven had a little bit of God Strength left, and you have a Slardar. But if your team doesn't call for Roche, like, you should. And you should, like, run to Roche. Like, right there, immediately. Storm is really, really good with Aegis. So, you guys end up doing it, but, like, they could have been here. Disruptor has ult now. They didn't come, but they could have. Good picks. Disruptor totally whiffs. Like, for an Archon, you're playing very well. You're like not being a pussy because you have Aegis. Yeah, like those 4 minutes were basically perfect. Itemization is great too. Like, you recognize that you only die if you don't have a BKB. So like, you can get a BKB.
A gift from the Tempest of Battle. Double damage.
So you notice that even though you guys are ahead and you just took a bunch of great fights, you don't really have any vision. Why is that? So part of it is because either your supports didn't ward or the enemy supports de-warded really well. The other thing is your waves are like super far in, which is just crazy. Like between Sven, Phoenix, Slardar, and Storm, these waves should never be on your side of the river. Like your first priority is always to waves, especially once you get this BKB. Like you're buying this BKB so you don't die to Disruptor ulti, right? So do you care if you walk down a lane and they bring 3 heroes and they Disruptor ulti you and you 10-second BKB and you zip into the trees and TP out? Like, does that matter? Like, are you gonna get tipped by the enemy team? Probably, yeah. They're gonna Ellie giggle you or some shit. But who cares? Like, that's the whole point. You have this BKB is to not die to Disruptor ulti. So if he's pressing ulti and you're pressing BKB, you're perfectly happy with that. You're not buying BKB in order to dodge Mirana's Starfall or some crap like that. You know, it's like that's what it's for. So go and like, even if you have to use it, go push these waves out. It opens up the map so much. Like, and you'll probably die once or twice because. Like, maybe you get Centaur stomped into arrow or whatever. But, like... but it just, like, that's just the game, right? It's like, who cares what your KDA is if you're winning? And that's the correct play. And you'll, of course, get better at doing it without feeding. These fights are awesome for you guys. Your attention to runes is, like... very, very high compared to most people in your bracket. Extremely high. I don't know if you've watched some like YouTube tutorial on power runes or something. There you go. Like, oh no. You 9-second BKB, then you lived. Wah. So you did stop buying clarities a little while ago, which is something we talked about, which is you should basically have a clarity going if you're not in a fight. This is one of those reasons, or one of those times. Yeah, I think we're going to stop it here. Everything I've seen, except for the rotations, has been pretty decent. I was really, really picky with like the first 5 minutes of laning phase, because I think most people just honestly suck at laning. So like, go watch those first 5 minutes. Make sure that you're like, basically level 1 to level 6 is flawless on Storm. It basically just has to be flawless, and that's going to propel you throughout the game. The only other complaint I have is your farm has just like plummeted so hard. I don't know what your GPM is, but yeah, sub 500 in a free game where you guys are basically stomping. This isn't Sven carrying you. Like, you did well, and sure, Sven carried some, right? But, you know, he's ancient too. It's like, that's kind of expected. He's higher than everybody else here. And then the other fact is, like, it is literally his job to carry. I mean, that's his role. But your farm is way too low, and it's because you're not pushing lanes. So you should easily have completed your Shivas and have most of another item by now. Like, very, very easily. This is less farm than I would expect if you were the farm level of the enemy team. Or if the game had gone as bad for you guys as it did for the enemy team. Yeah. And it's good that you're like going and giving vision for your team when you have Aegis. Like, that's the whole reason you have this item. Honestly, if it wasn't for your shitty rotations and your lack of farm, I would say you look like an Ancient Storm pretty easily. Like, mechanically, you're just much better than the enemy. Yeah, that's literally the only complaint I have is your farm is trash. So, just focus on farming. You can even go in a custom lobby and just, like, practice farming. Like, practice being efficient. You don't have to make these moves in a custom lobby like there's enemy heroes. You can just farm and just like practice your farming, and that will help you. So that's everything I want to say. I'm done.